Hi, I'm Scott Wozniak, CEO of Swaz Consulting, and you can catch me on the next episode of the Jesse T Show.
Welcome to the Jesse T Show, brother.
Dude, it's exciting to be here, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this conversation. We started connecting, I think, back in September, even before then.
Yeah,
And
good conversations.
yeah, it was beautiful. The energy was there. The conversation was there. I'm excited to hear more about you and your journey. But before we get into that, before we jumped on, we were talking about things that you were utilizing in the form of tools to create more energy in your life. And this is something I think that anybody who's performance minded and someone who's growth minded could use probably more of, and if they're burning the candle, so to speak. So what is it that you're working with now to create more energy in your life?
Dude, I love this. And I just got to jump in to underline your comment. Like, man, when so one of the things we do training and consulting stuff, but I'll coach some executives as a part of these packages. And man, the first phase of all my executive coaching conversations is to ask about their energy. How are you doing on energy? Because this is like the thing that precedes all the other things, right? Like, love your grand plans, love your strategy, love the tools. But if you don't have the energy to use them, none of that crap matters, man. It's like, so when people talk about time management, I like, no, we need to talk about energy management. When are your natural spikes? When are your crashes? How do we minimize those, maximize the other, put your best work in your most critical energy time? I mean, there's all this layers to it. So quick little personal stuff, since we're talking my story. Part of the nuance of why I pay so much attention to that is because, one, I'm a non-standard sleep type. So we all have a natural sleep type. I'm a night owl. There are night owls, but it's like 15 to 20% of the population will be night owls. So I'm in the minority. And what that means is, unlike most people, my best energy, creative production time is around 8 or 9 p.m.
Wow.
And trying to go to bed is one of the lifelong challenges for me, because then I'd have life and jobs and kids and stuff that wants me to still get up with everybody else. But then I've been up till 2, 3 a.m. And so sleep deprivation, what do you know? I got in a really bad cycle where I was staying up late, getting up early, like, and not, there's 5% of people who can do that, and they don't actually need 8 hours of sleep, but 95% of us need 8 something hours, right? 8 plus sometimes. So I was just like burning the candle at both ends, thinking, I'll sleep when I'm dead. We'll figure it out. And dude, my energy and my creativity and my weight ballooned, my energy went down, just crashed. So I've went on a journey to kind of recapture energy, figure that out. I had a wake-up call. When I say wake-up call moment, I mean, I literally fell asleep while driving and woke up because I smashed into a car.
Wow.
Now, thank God that happened to me in my neighborhood at 25 miles an hour. But it had been happening on the interstate at 75 miles an hour, and I just didn't hit anybody. But I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I got too much on my plate. And so like, it was literally like this moment of like, you almost died.
Yeah.
If that would have happened 2 miles before, because I just gotten off the interstate. I live really close to the interstate. 2 miles ago, you were going 75 miles an hour. If you'd have fell asleep there, you're dead. And so figuring out energy was a huge factor. So I've been on this journey, and some of the stuff is the basics, man.
Yes.
Like, what do you know? Sleep matters.
Yes. Yeah.
You talk all the great game you want, and you just need to put in some time in a good bed and like get some good sleep. So I fiddled with beds and tools to get that. But that's been for a while pretty good. And then like exercise and eating, and nothing crazy. I mean, I could probably stand to even upgrade my eating a little bit better, but I eat generally well and then splurge once in a while. But even putting basic disciplines in have been getting good and good and good to where now I'm getting like, okay, minor things like, how often do I have a dessert a month? I could cut back a little on that.
Okay.
But generally, like eating healthy, fresh stuff. And the latest thing I'm doing though is none of that. So the reason I want to go off on those is like, you probably shouldn't mess with this one if you haven't done the basics, right?
Yep.
If you're not exercising, listen, I just read a book on brain neuroscience, and he was just talking about how the brain as a physical organ is so positively impacted by exercise.
Yep.
And how it's like, you want to be smarter, you want to be more creative, you want to stay focused longer, mental stamina is a good word for it. Like, yeah, you should go run for 10 minutes. I mean, like, what does it do with my brain, right? That's cardiovascular. Like, your brain gets benefited too. So Okay, so check those boxes, sleep enough, eat well, get a little bit, a little bit of exercise and just get the heart rate up, right? Some basic stuff. And I've been doing that for years and pretty healthy. Like I'm out and about. I do extreme sports on the regular. Latest adventure was kite surfing, been getting into that. That's super fun. So like
Nice.
I'm in a pretty good place. And then I just read another book about health. Now, I almost half embarrassed saying the book because the title of the book doesn't sound like the book. It's Life Force by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And now that sounds like it's going to be like tap into your inner energy or something, like Tony's motivating. Turns out Tony co-authored it with 2 doctors, and he's the opening and closing, and the
Yeah.
rest of the book is nothing to do with your inner energy from a woo-woo standpoint. It's entirely the latest breakthroughs in health technology and like biology and medicine and like how do you do this? And then this is where I'm pretty sure Tony comes into the picture. Like, why do you add him to the book? Well, I guess his name sells books, but
Right.
also they set up a company for you to then go get their cutting edge supplements and their process. So I'm 2 cycles into this, and dude, it is good. What they do is they do like 40 some tests on you through blood tests.
Okay.
Every 90 days. And by the way, you don't have to sign up for the company to do this. That's why I'm going off on this. Like the process is interesting. And where a lot of the big breakthroughs have been happening for me, for my wife, for several of my friends now, I'm like, you guys should check this out, is there's stuff that they're not measuring in a typical assessment. I've been doing annual like executive assessments for years, right? Quick, easy thing. What's your hormone levels like?
Yep.
How's your testosterone looking? Well, that was never on any of the tests. Guess what? 2 of the close people in my life, some of my friends, their testosterone was way out of whack. And they're
Yep.
like, oh, that's easy. You take these basic testosterone treatments. There are no side effects as long as you don't overdose. And what do you know? Overnight, people think of testosterone as a sex drive thing. Sure, that does happen, but it's a drive in general, like motivation, energy, mental focus. When your testosterone's out of
Creativity.
whack,
Yep.
dude, you could do all the cool programs and plans you want in the world, and you're just going to feel like you're tired and low motivated and you don't care. Maybe you should just check your testosterone. So I'd say my wife told a bunch of her friends, and like 3 of them found out their testosterone was low. And so I just got to tell you, Jesse, between you and me, I'm like, I'm pretty sure those husbands owe me something right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're all married. Fellas, I just got your wife's testosterone back online. How much is that worth to you, right? Like
Quality of life, it's biological for most people to, especially men, once they get into their mid to upper 30s and then into their 40s for sure, testosterone drops like clockwork every year. And
exactly.
it's something that it makes men, and it's something that, unless you understand it, can be misconstrued. Just because we have testosterone, or just because we seek to make sure those levels, that doesn't mean that we're going to be aggressive. That doesn't mean that we're going to be angry all the time. It's basically, it keeps us in balance, and it keeps us viable and vital and vestal. It's something that we need. And as men that are listening to this, that get in their 40s, have that stuff checked. Have it checked as much as possible. Do things that create testosterone, like large lifts, doing squats, doing deadlifts, doing things like eating certain foods. And going back to your point, what you put in your body is so important. And there's things that are out there that are these tools that can help you. There's a company, I don't know if you've heard of this, called Viome, Viome, and I've used them twice. And Viome is an internal diagnostic of where you are in the moment. And so basically what you'll do is there's a blood portion, there's a poop portion, and you collect those samples, send them in, and within 2 weeks, you get this immersive data rich, telling you so many things. The first thing is, what are your superfoods? What are going to help you thrive? What are the foods that you can enjoy? What are the foods that you need to have minimal of? And what are the foods that you need to stay away from as kryptonite? And this is interesting because our gut health is basically an indicator of any kind of disease. Most disease starts in the gut. And if you're not watching what you put in your system, especially foods that cause inflammation, which is also a precursor to disease, you can actually kill yourself. And people don't even realize that. They think they're eating healthy. Let's say someone's eating broccoli, someone's eating, chickpeas. They think they're eating these foods that are healthy. The first time I did Viome, my kryptonite foods were chickpeas, were broccoli. What was inside my belly was saying no. And what happens is it also goes into the probiotic and the prebiotics, and it says, you don't have these things in your body, you have these things in your body. Oh, by the way, you're not getting these nutrients. And so it's kind of like you were talking about with Tony, where if you choose to, after you do the Viome diagnostic, you can go into the supplement side where they'll send you a skinny packet for your drink to mix, and they'll send you 8 pills for the day, which are your prebiotics, probiotics, and nutrients that you weren't getting. And you can heal yourself. And I wanted to ask you this because you've been alluding to this the whole time in this conversation. This what we're talking about is human optimization. We're talking about things that are in the world called biohacking. Are you into any biohacking experts? Like, I know you mentioned a couple people, but are you into any of these other leading thought leaders in this space?
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the general category. Folks, I do pay attention to. So Tony Robbins does a bunch of fun stuff in this space. I also look at a guy named Peter Attia for some of my medical science related kind of cutting edge. Honestly, I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. Just the self-experimentation mentality where he's always fiddling with this and fiddling with that. And then I use apps and tools and smart watch trackers and rings, and my bed's got sensors built into it. And so, yeah, man, it's been huge impact. I was going to say non-trivial, but that's even too small. Like, it has been life-changing to just get data and run experiments. Because to your point, man, this is what we're finding. Like, there isn't a one size fits all when it comes to nutrition and health. There are some very generic things like you should get your heart rate up.
Drink a ton of water. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Exactly. Some basic stuff. We know this food's bad for you, right? Like a bunch of processed sugar is just bad. Sorry, as much as I love it. Right.
Same.
But outside of that, 90%, like my wife and I have been fiddling with this, and that's the beauty of the Life Force stuff. It sounds just like Viome. It's every 90 days we're going to retest and tweak. And they give you as much lifestyle recommendations as they do supplements. So the testosterone. So my testosterone was good, but not optimal.
What was the numbers, if you remember? Was it 300, 400, 500? Like,
I'm trying to remember. I think I was around 300 something, 370 maybe, and 400 was 400 to 500 was optimal. I might have got those numbers wrong, but it's that relatively speaking, right? I was just outside optimal, and they were like, I don't think you need a treatment, but do some extra leg workouts. Here's a couple of foods that tend to use. And really what came down is I had enough testosterone, but I didn't have enough free testosterone. It wasn't getting into the bloodstream. And so they're like, hey, do a couple of these things. They tested it again, and they're like, perfect. Your testosterone's nailing it.
Beautiful.
So again, tweaks. I wouldn't start here if you're not doing the basics, right?
Yes.
But man, I probably got 20% improvement in energy.
Which huge.
20%. Like
massive.
My job requires me, for better and for worse, I don't have mindless crap in my job anymore. Like, I have to be on, or I can't do conversations like this, brain dead. And so, yeah, dude, to add 20% productivity back to my life, that's not small. And I was in a pretty good place. Like, this isn't like I was struggling and now I'm not so bad. Like, I was killing it. And now I'm like, I mean, it's 9 o'clock and I don't want to veg out. I'm too energized to do that. Why don't I pop open something and write another chapter in a book? So it's been remarkable, dude. Energy. It's the fundamental thing. So I'll tag another fun group of, there's another podcast I love that, I don't know, you may have heard of this guy, How to Take Over the World, which, by the way, is one of my coolest podcast titles.
What a great name.
Yeah, seriously, like, kind of a little jealous, I'll be honest. Should have claimed that one. But so what he does is this guy looks at biographies of great men and women of history and how they did it. And a lot of them are like Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great, who literally took over the world, right? And so he did this episode, though, where he pulled a couple of patterns out and said, hey, I just want to share a couple of odd things I'm seeing. And there were 3 that really struck my attention. The first, though, was energy. Like, these people just have a ton of energy. Everybody talked about like sun up to sundown, or whenever maybe they were night owls, right? But they just went to town and they felt like they just put more effort in than the average person. So you don't have to cross your fingers and hope that happens. You can figure out your own unique stuff and then figure out how to play the hand you've been dealt, right? Figure out your unique little engine that you got and plug this fuel in and crank that lever and see. we can all improve our energy, man.
This is something that I work with. I do get in the woo woo a little bit and or a lot of it, and it's been very powerful. But I also stay grounded. So I have one foot in the grounded kind of the almost ancient proven methods, and I have one foot kind of in the cosmos, if you will. But
Nice, nice.
it's been a beautiful experience. And what you're going back to when you said you have to clear out the garbage, you have to kind of start with the basics. Have you heard the name Paul Chek, Chek?
I have not, but now I'm curious.
He has a book. He's an amazing thought leader, and he's one of the biggest. He's probably in his late 50s, early 60s, and he looks like a Greek god. And
Nice.
he's big into a lot of these things. And one of his most famous books is called "The Last Four Doctors You'll Ever Need: How to Get Healthy Now." The first one is Dr. Quiet, so rest. Second one is Dr. Diet, what you eat. Third one is Dr. Happiness, which is very important. And then the fourth one is Dr. Movement. And even just moving your body, talking about movement, you're moving energy through your body. And so whether it's dance, whether it's martial arts, whether it's lifting, whether it's sports, any number of movement, you're going to take these stagnant, stuck energies, which do cause disease eventually, whether it's impingements, whether it's, injuries, whatever it is. And even just moving your body, you can stave off a lot of these issues. And going for a walk. I mean, go for a walk after you eat. Helps you digest better, helps you get into that place of just kind of zen, which is beautiful.
Yes,
but
yes.
that's the first thing I wanted to share. And the second one was a gentleman I think you'll love based on the people you've mentioned. His name is Dr. Andrew Huberman. Have you heard of Andrew Huberman?
Oh, dude, I'm taking notes though. I love this.
He's a professor over at Stanford, but he's one of the biggest biohacking minds in the world. And he has, I believe it's the Huberman Lab. If you just type up Huberman on one of the podcasts, he goes into everything from the effect of coffee on the body to the effect of sleep to the effect of, sunlight on your eyes, on your genitals. There's these huge studies of sunning your butt and sunning your genitals, and that increases testosterone by like 70%. And so there's all these wild things that are out there that we just got to utilize, and most of them are free. And the last one I wanted to tell you about, because I know that you'll love this. This may get into the very beginning stages of woo-woo, but grounding, getting your feet on the ground, and it releases free radicals. It exchanges different ions in your body. Yeah. And if you take a grounding blanket, which they have, or a grounding sheet, it reduces inflammation and staves off disease there too. So there's so many things that we can do to get into this optimal energetic state. So I love that we started there.
I don't mind at all pushing into the edges. One of the clients that I work with has got this really cool technology. They just patented it, but that really kind of taps into your bioelectric systems. And they have these remarkable case studies where they can say, like, listen, it shouldn't have healed this way, or you shouldn't have got this kind of performance, or everybody said there's no way. And they're like, well, if you just hack into the natural bioelectrical rhythms of the body. And that's what this system does, is you put these sensors on and run these currents through in it. The normal problem with all the electrical systems beforehand, what they've solved is that the human skin, typically, if you try to pump a lot of current to it, the current stays on the surface area. It doesn't go into the deep tissue. Yep. And so you don't really get into the nervous system. You're just constantly making the surface muscles twitch, right? And they figured out how to do that using kind of a unique sound wave patterns. So I won't get into the science of it, but the point is, I think we don't understand as much as we think we understand. And I do a version of what you're talking about with grounding. So I travel internationally, part of my job. I work around the world. And one of the huge problems for that is sleep lag stuff, right? Like you show up and just get smashed. By, I went to Israel 2 months ago, right? And 9 hours difference is not great for the body, right? But one of the tricks we've learned, and there's stuff you can do, but this is probably by far the single most powerful thing, is I get up and I watch the sunrise, and I'm standing on the ground in bare feet.
So beautiful.
And so the combo, like bare feet on the ground while the sun is coming up, resets my circadian rhythms, sets my body electricity with the timing. And it's like, you know what? I'm a little sleepy that first day, but I have zero jet lag, and I used to have terrible jet lag, like staying awake, wrong times, crashing in the middle of the day. Like, no, that's one of the two keys to the whole setup. And the other, honestly, is just try not to sleep too much. I usually do the red eye flight. So like, stay up enough that I'm still a little tired, watch the sunrise, finish the day, you'll be fine.
That's beautiful advice. And people that are, there's a lot of like, great information that's coming back around as far as some of these ancient methods that you're alluding to from grounded, and then also from looking at the sun. For the longest time, people like, don't look at the sun, you'll go blind. It's the time of day that you look at the sun. When the sun is rising, you can stare at the sun. And I've actually done, it's sun gazing, and it does a ton for the body. And then you can do it right at sunrise and right at sunset. There's a period where you can stare at the sun. Obviously, it's hurting your eyes. Don't stare at it, but like, you can train your eyes to look at this, and what it does for you on a health level, combined with the grounding. I mean, those two things alone, people think that's kind of like out there. Maybe some people probably like, it's not a big deal. But if you do those two things on a regular basis, your quality of life is going to absolutely improve. And I am going to steal this from you because I'm going to Italy in a couple of weeks just after Thanksgiving, and there's a time change there as well. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get out. I'm going to just, follow the sun. And the last piece I wanted to button up before kind of diving deeper into your story was, Tim Ferriss is one of the reasons why I started this podcast.
Totally.
Huge fan. Been into him for years. He's someone who, he's a business mind. He's a health mind. He's into, psychedelics. He's in the spiritual world. And that's exactly where I play, in all those places. And it's a beautiful, beautiful muse, because I am a guinea pig too. I'll try something on myself if I feel like it's going to have some sort of effect for the better for myself or other people.
Yeah.
And he's been a great guiding light in that space. And he's been able to heal a lot of his own stuff. He had severe depression. He had thoughts of suicide. I think even attempted suicide, and he was able to cure that through the use of psychedelics, breath work, meditation, like all these beautiful natural tools.
I got to say, what I love about you is, one of the things I love about him as well is the authenticity, man. Because you can process this, but the gift that you give when you just willing to put it out to the world and say, hey, open book, right?
Yeah.
Like glass walls, come check it out, because maybe my journey might help you.
Yes.
That's to me as impressive as the actual progress that's been done.
That's beautiful, brother. Thank you for that acknowledgement, man. I'll tell you, there was a gentleman, I did a podcast earlier today. We were talking about David Goggins, and David Goggins has a book called Can't Hurt Me, where he talks about,
I've read that one.
So good. He talks about, really, the title saying can't hurt me is, if I tell you everything about me, you really can't hurt me, because I've released myself from shame and judgment. Yeah. And I've done this in my own life, and it was guys like Goggins and Tim Ferriss that role modeled that for me. And it helped me to take my power back, to stop being so hard on myself. But then now I can relate to people on a much deeper level and have empathy for people, because we've been through a lot of the same things in a lot of different ways. And I think it's a beautiful way to do life. So thank you for acknowledging that, man.
Yeah, bro. Well, I mean, it's this human story, man. The details are different, but man, the more I open myself up, the more I realize, like, we're the same. You might have coped slightly differently, right? The trauma might have come in from a slightly different source, but man, the fundamental patterns are usually the same. So your journey helps my journey every time.
Likewise, brother. We co-create together. So talk a little bit about the day to day. What are you doing in life and in business that's helping you and those around you?
Yeah, man. So maybe talk about sharing your journey. My company helps leaders build legendary lives and legendary brands, right? So I've spent the last 20 some years inside working with top tier folks in multiple categories, from pro sports to Fortune 100 billionaires to best-selling authors. I mean, it's been a fun ride. And in the process, I started saying, okay, first version was, dude, I just want to learn for myself, right? Yep. So I worked for some of these guys that put me in these circles, and I don't want to play in this. And then I started coaching folks, turned into like, well, let me start describing it, turned into training programs, turned into like, well, let me just put a package together and help you get there. And so we sometimes work with an individual. Typically, it's like a high net worth individual who's saying, hey, I kind of figured out how to make this money, but now what life do I want to live? Right? Like, I can do anything I want. I don't have to work again if I don't want to, but I'm not done. I got gas in the tank, but who am I, and what does my ideal life look like? And then the other part is that, well, let me help build this great business. How do you get that engine going that creates that kind of epic life option? And I started learning all that for myself, because that's what I wanted. Honestly, Jesse, I didn't grow up with real money. I grew up with maybe the one thing you really need, and that's truly loving, supportive parents.
Beautiful.
But for a whole other long story short, my parents had a falling out with their families. And for a temporary time, when they got together, they actually got a little too woo-woo, kind of talking about Jesus and faith, and in not in a nice, polite way. Like, let's get on the streets and talk to people about living a better life. And they sold all their stuff. And so it was fun. It was wild. It's all before me. That's how they met. And then their families kind of disowned them for a while. So they started with, they had sold everything and lost all their support systems. They got married. And now they're doing phenomenal. I mean, they've got a big house and cool jobs and love life, but man, they started from zero, and literally, so I lived in South Florida, and we lived in a house without air conditioning. I mean, like we said, I didn't have much money. Some people are like, yeah, so, we could only go to Europe every other year, right? Like, I don't think that's the same kind of little bit of money I'm talking about. Like, yeah, when you don't have air conditioning in South Florida, like it's not a luxury, right? Like,
or heat in Boston during the winter, which was me. So we have a very similar but different contrast.
I was going to say, so we didn't have winter where we were. I can imagine the opposite. Yeah,
they both suck. It's funny though, because now I'm into cold plunging. I'm into saunas and sweat lodges. So as much as the temperatures were a bane of my existence, I've learned to utilize them for healing.
Yeah. Oh, dude. And that's a whole other issue on health and energy. But like we stay in this comfy little bubble, and we lose the ability to deal with extremes in our body. So rant of that over. Yeah. Good people, but nothing. And yet I had some early exposure. So I was a child actor, singer, and I got on some stages and won some awards. Did my first show when I was 4. My mom knew some people and got me on the stage. By the time I was 10, I was winning stuff. And
nice.
I joined a music group, and we toured the country and recorded CD. And by high school, I was on NBC for a Christmas special, and like crazy stuff. And the gap between like my neighborhood and the people I was playing with in these shows, like, oh, this is and it wasn't just because a lot of folks, honestly, who were bluntly like in the poor category, the excuse some of my friends in that category says, well, if you don't have money, you just can't. And then I started hanging out. I was like, these people are actually living differently.
Yeah.
They have a different mentality. They treat themselves differently. That what they prioritize is different. Like I don't know that I certainly don't have the money they have, but I can start doing some of the stuff they're doing. And what do you know? It started changing my life. And so
beautiful.
I mean, that's where now I left that world. I got into my early 20s, got a degree in musical theater performance, was doing pro work. And honestly, I was like, I don't really want to do this. Everyone kept saying, you got the gifts, you got to go. Like, okay, sure. And it was successful. I had like 60 lead roles by the time it was all done. But at the same time, man, I didn't love it for its own sake. It was my method to get out of kind of, average and get into something exceptional. And as I really started getting into what do I really want to do with my life, it wasn't the stage. As much as I enjoyed it, there wasn't a deep love for it. Yeah. And so I started getting into some youth programs with kids and worked at a sports camp and started thinking, man, maybe I want to make a difference. So I went nonprofit for a little while. Mm-hmm. And dude, I got to be honest, I worked for several different groups, and a couple of them were some really nice guys with a great heart who were really bad leaders. So frustrating. And they were nice guys. Like to this day, they're still friends. They didn't mean bad, but one guy couldn't make a decision, super vague. You figure it out. Absentee. And we're like, no, dude, you got to like pick. What are we doing here? Yeah. The other guy tried to micromanage everything and but I didn't have words for any of this stuff. So I was talking to a mentor, just like, what's going on? And they handed me a business book. And honestly, Jesse, at first I was like, okay, no, listen, I'm an arts nonprofit.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't do this math stuff. And they're like, just read the book. I stayed up reading that book till 2 a.m. like it was a novel. I didn't have words for this until they gave me the books. And then books turned into getting a coach, going to
What was that first book, Scott?
Oh, dude, it's baby basic now. I have a recommendation list, and it didn't make my ultimate recommendation list, but it was just the first one. It was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
That's a great book. That's a great book.
It's like your ABCs, man. I like it. I think there are better leadership books than it, but just, I needed like the primer, like the beginner's guide to leadership. And that's what that book is brilliant for.
So good.
Tiny little nuggets, stories. Why I don't love it long-term is because it doesn't really tell you how to fix the problem. It just names 21 issues. And then like, you got to go get all those other books to actually solve all those problems. But at the very least, I was like, you know what? Now I know what the smack. Oh, this guy messed that problem up. Oh, this guy meant. And then I gotta tell you, Jesse, I can sound really noble here, like I figured it out. The truth is, it also like was a punch in the gut because I was messing up a ton of those things as well. Like I
Mm,
was not a good leader. I think I was a good guy with a good heart who was not leading well. When you say I wasn't leading well, this isn't me trying to be noble, dude. Right around this time, while I'm in the middle of figuring this out, we had a huge blow up with my staff, and one of the turns out for 6 months, two of my staff, three of the board members, two of the volunteers of this youth organization had been meeting for 6 months, collecting evidence, and then they had a huge showdown in front of the board on why I needed to be fired.
oh no.
I mean, dude, it's not like I was a bad leader. Like I could have done a little bit better. Like, no, I had a mutiny on my hands.
Sounds like it.
And like, okay, so I didn't get fired. It turned out, they were way overreacting to dumb stuff, but I was doing dumb stuff, man.
Right.
Changing the plan, like in the middle of the plan. Like, I know we just spent 6 months working on that, but I got a better idea. We went on a youth trip and I left the door of the youth building open. I don't mean like unlocked, Jesse. I mean like propped with a rock open. Like, we come back 3 days later and it's like
Safety.
leaves blown inside. We're like, I hope the equipment's still in there.
Oh my goodness.
I
And
mean,
nothing happened, right? It was okay.
it turned out no, beside from the leaves that had blown in, no
Woo!
problems. I know, but that's not because I did it well, right? Like we just got lucky.
Yes.
So I was sloppy. I was not bringing my team along. Like, so I mean, honestly, I wrote a whole book called How to Fail as a Leader based on my biggest leadership mistakes. I probably could.
Did you publish it?
I did. You can find it on Amazon.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I say all that to be like, this is really where I got. So I've been running with these big dogs, and even this nonprofit stuff. I was doing stadium tours. I mean, crazy cool God doors. So I believe God's been a big part of my life. It opened a lot of these doors I can't claim credit for, man. I just was there, and there was some sort of crazy favor, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to do this thing." And so I got to play at the highest level, and then I got into this business leadership strategy stuff. So I went back to grad school to get a leadership degree. It was out of a business school. What do you know? I discovered business is full of strategy and creativity and people nuance. And I was like, oh, I just thought it was accounting. Like I had no idea. Fell in love with the game of business, the entrepreneurial game, especially.
Yes.
But I ended up working for some pretty big dogs, including the senior leaders of Chick-fil-A. So I went to high school with the family that owns Chick-fil-A. The current CEO is my high school buddy.
Yeah.
Of course, back then, right? I was like, hey, I'm going to go be a star. Good luck with your little mall restaurant company. Yeah.
Billions of dollars later.
Exactly.
Millions and gajillions of pounds of chicken later.
Might have missed that one. So about 15 years ago, they asked me to join their team, and I got to do some really cool strategy stuff as a full-time staff for almost a decade. So I mean, in their business circles, my job was to go study the best in the world and bring that insight back. That was my job at Chick-fil-A. So even then, I went to play in the big business circles, and the more and more I played, I just saw their patterns across the whole thing, man. The details are different. The way you translate it into your setting changes, but there really are some universal patterns for greatness. And so started doing that on the side, speaking, wrote a couple books, then launched my own company to help people. The first client to hire me back was Chick-fil-A. So I keep working with them as a consultant guy now, but dude, it's been a ride. It's been a crazy ride. And back to where we talked about for you, really the journey has been like, if I could just share, first it was for me, how do I become great? And then it was, you know what? My journey of this, from like blowing it to figuring it out, from seeing these patterns, if I just start sharing what I'm going through, it started being really helpful for other people. And so that's it. I mean, we got 18 folks on staff and a whole team of people that help around these things now. And it's all just like, I went to go figure it out. And that story has been useful for people. So
that's beautiful. Beautiful life experience, and a great way to take the life lessons that you've had and the experiences and implement them into your daily life, not only for the betterment of your quality of life, but the people that you work with. And in that vein of people that you work with, how are people finding you? And you've mentioned CEOs, billionaires, people that have exited and they don't know what to do, but they want to do something. And this connection with Chick-fil-A. What does it look like day to day? How are you helping them and how are they finding you?
Yeah, man. So you can find me, my website, scottwozniak.com. That's SCOTTWOZNIAK.com. I have to spell the last name because there's like 4 different versions of Wozniak out there.
I get it.
But yeah, that site gets me my personal site. My company's swozconsulting.com, SWOZ consulting.com. So any one of those can find me and my team and what we're doing. What that kind of looks like. That's usually some combination. Like the simplest end is like, let's just do some coaching sessions.
Yep.
One-on-one. Let's just talk. We can do an assessment of you or your company and come like evaluate and then offer you a strategic plan. Hey, here's what you can do. Here's what your real opportunities are. A little bit like the health thing we were just talking about, right?
Yep.
Like instead of a generic thing, hey, let's actually put a team together, see how your team's operating or how you're operating. And then if sometimes out of those strategic plans, people will say, man, hey, why don't you help me actually implement this? So for the next year or two, become my partner, help me stick around and go through the process of actually turning cool ideas to a whole new lifestyle. So,
Yes.
so that for the company or for the company side, it'll be like, yeah, let's set the new, we call it an engine, your company engine. Why don't we actually build this engine for you and with you? And so yeah, those are very variable. The time and cost and all that is everything. Like it might be a small project. It might be 3 years, might be, 9 months. That's just got to depend on your plan. So we have a blast though. And if anyone's interested in that stuff, man, they can just check the websites out. There's a little contact form. I will say this, if you're interested in talking more, I've got a newsletter that they could sign up for. Every week I drop the stuff I'm learning, talk about transparency, right? Hey, here's one of the things I'm wrestling through. It's very short. One quote, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs on a big idea I've been wrestling with. And then I recommend one cool thing I love, like a tool, a book, a podcast, that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, man.
What about the trajectory of Swoz Consulting? What do you feel like in terms of serving at your highest capacity, making an impact, enjoying your life as you go along the way? Where do you see this, trajectory of this going for you and those that are around you?
Yeah, dude, we're not that recently. I mean, only 2 or 3 years ago, kind of got super clear on the core that we want to do. Part of my problem is I'd had such a wide variety of experiences. And then when I started the company after leaving Chick-fil-A, it's 7 or 8 years ago now, it technically was a company for a long time, but I'd put it on the side. And when I went back to full time, I was like, I could do it all. And so we did it all. And yeah.
Now, wait, hold on one second. You said you put the company on the side. Did you went back to full time? Did you go like pause the company and go back to work in corporate?
Yeah. So the whole Chick-fil-A journey, I was at the corporate headquarters as a W-2 for 8 years, man.
Okay.
I had my company and then I just I kept it on the books, but I was like, I ain't got time for that. This is such a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
My friends play at the highest level. Like, let's do this. So during that time, yeah, I mean, I spoke 3 or 4 times a year. I wrote a couple books. I ran all that through my company, but it was like I would actively say no to a lot of stuff. Like, sorry, got a job, can't do that one. But you know what? I can show up on that one day. I'll take a vacation day for you.
Yeah.
So it was that for a while, and then it was like, no, I think I need to go back in with all the stuff I've learned and do another run at this. So that was where that happened. Yeah, man. And so where are we headed? Like, for a while, did everything, and you chuckled appropriately. That is not good business strategy. Right? Yeah. In fact, the best metaphor I got from a mentor that woke me up to this is he's like, listen, it's like you got to think about your brand like a boat, like it's an ice-breaking ship up in the northern sea lanes, right? And they freeze over, and you send these ice-breaking ships to clear the lanes. And he said, what we think is that if you've got all these capacity, you want to load it up to the front of the boat because you'll look more impressive. But it's like riding a flat fronted boat. What you actually want those boats to do is narrow, narrow, narrow. And there's a really cool phrase I'll never forget. He said, you actually want to pick one thing as your focus and use that one thing as the tip of your boat to break through the icy indifference of the world.
Love it.
Now, once you break through, it's really cool that you've got all this stuff on the back of the boat, because now they're interested in all the other things they can do with you. But if they can't anchor onto the one thing, then they're not going to notice you. You'll never break through. It's again, like trying to smack the ice with a flat fronted boat. You're making it harder. And it's so counterintuitive, but I've looked it up. There's psychological studies that back this up, man. Like if you list it's almost like we have this is what the psychologists describe it. It's like we have this zero-sum game mentality when it comes to your credibility. So if you tell me you're world class at 5 different things, I'm like diluting your capability. It should be like, dude, it's 5x. It's like, well, he can't actually be world class at this because he listed 4 other things. And if you say I'm only world class at one thing and you don't mention the other 4 things, they'll actually think you're more impressive. And then after they get to know you, you can drop, oh, well, I do 4 other things as well.
Renaissance person. Yeah. Yep.
So we finally narrowed 2 or 3 years ago and said, this is it. We do customer experience and employee experience, these 2 engines, your customer engine, your employee engine. If you figure those systems out and how you systematize that, that's our special sauce. You get that, you can become a legendary brand. So that, dude, it's taken off. We've grown and grown and grown 30, 40% a year. I mean, it's just like ding, 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 like, okay, this is what we need to do. And we got to the point where I get to pick and choose my favorite projects. I don't have to be on all the projects because it's all systematized and my team is rock stars.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And so the reason I say that is like, dude, there's no ceiling. Like at this point, we're like, I don't know. We just set a BHAG like a month ago. We had our fall staff retreat and we're like, well, I want to 10X this sucker in the next 10 years. There's absolutely no reason why we can't just help 10 times more people. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. Customer engine, employee engine. Let's just see how big we can go because that's more people we've impacted. So
do you have a ideal client, people that you love to work with and the projects you like to get your hands in on in terms of, industry, size of company, type of leadership? Like what gets your wheels humming as far as wanting to get in there and you get your hands dirty?
Yeah, so typically mid to large size companies, because it's more complex. Here's the typical reason they're coming to us. Man, either one of 2 things. I have plateaued and I don't know how to get this growth engine started. Like it's all kind of, we've got a great product, but it's not working. Or we're growing like a rocket ship, but it's creating tons of growth pains. Like our systems can't keep up with our growth. What do we do? And in both of those cases, we need to rejigger their engine, right? So mid to large size companies that are either on a growth tear and they're like, we got to keep up with this, or they feel stuck and they're like, man, again, the product is good. There's a whole other set of systems to figure out, do you actually have something of value? That's one of the things I used to do. Like now I'm like, let's let the other companies do that. If you feel like you got something of value, but you don't know how to really make use of it, or it's growing so much that it's like wrecking your life, we got that. And then the similar thing with a person where it's like the person's in a rapid growth individual, or the person like just kind of exited, as you said, and then they're like sitting there with this flat plateau in front of them. Like, I don't think I could play golf for the rest of my life. I mean, I like the game, but there's got to be more than perennial golf lessons. So what next? So that's where we come involved. And then honestly, industry wise, all over the map. I have worked with everything from software to construction to legal services. I mean, Silicon Valley startups and Fortune 100 banks. I mean, we've been all over the map. So that part, interestingly, is not the limiting factor. It's the engine. That's the part we get excited about.
That's beautiful. Yep. And being of service to these companies. And I like BHAG's big, hairy ass goals. Man. Big, hairy, audacious goals, whatever you want to call it. Did you hear that from Jesse Itzler by chance?
I got that from Jim Collins.
Okay.
So Jim's one of my all-time favorite authors, speakers in the business world. This is where the Chick-fil-A stuff spoiled me. So we would do like a company annual retreat. We just brought Jim back. In fact, he liked it so much, he said, I never do this, but he came back twice. He actually has a policy. Once I've given you the talk, like I don't do talks twice to the same company. And I'll brag on Chick-fil-A. He came back twice to the Chick-fil-A staff because he liked the team so much.
Wow.
Personally, like actually hearing Jim challenge us on BHAGs was where I picked that up. But I've heard it all over the place since. So.
Yep. Yeah. It's something where, I think another word for it is misogi. It's basically you put something on your calendar that's going to terrify you, but everything that you do aligns you to work towards like triathlon or something really hard, right? It's something, a marathon, whatever it is. And if you put it on your calendar and you have 5, 6, 8, 9 months out, full year out, if you really want to make this happen, everything you do is going to align to it, whether it's going back to the beginning of the conversation, from nutrition to sleep to who you're hanging out with, to the habits that you're having. And by default, you're going to create success in other areas of your life because you're doing the right things and you have this thing to look forward to. And so in that mindset of BHAG, big, hairy, audacious, or big, hairy ass goals, what, to sum it all up, looking at, you talked about SWAS, you talked about your experience leading up to that, you talked about all these different things that you use for success. If you were to put all that together, what's your BHAG for life on the personal side? What's the vision?
Great question, man. Honestly, I want to be able to say, I want others to say, when it's all said and done, that if you got a gathering of some of the world's influencers, thought leaders, business leaders, the kind of folks that shaped culture, I would love for a huge portion of those folks to be able to say, that guy had a big impact on who I am and helped make possible what I did. In fact, the way I tend to talk about it, Jesse, is I really feel called to be Merlin to the Arthurs of the world. Like, you got kingdoms to build, man. You got Camelot sitting in front of you, but it is lonely, hard, complicated, scary work to do. And I love coming alongside them, helping them articulate their dream, and then like working some magic to get them there faster, better, smarter. That's really been my Camelot, if you will, is helping see all these Arthurs take off and do their grand things in the world. So
that's beautiful.
That's
brother.
really the dream, man.
Great conversation. Great insights. I'm excited that we've connected. There's a lot of connective tissue and a lot of opportunity, I think, for us to add value to each other as we go along. But I want to be the first listener and viewer to say thank you for being you. Thanks. You for your time. And what a badass conversation, brother.
Dude, I had a blast. Thanks, Jesse.
My pleasure, man. He's Scott Wozniak. I'm Jesse. Catch us on the next week's episode. Jesse T Show.